The forum held at City Hall today looked at the changing situation in Newcastle with the development of many new economic and tourist strategies. Speakers included Dr. John Turner, acknowledged expert on Newcastle history, architect Brian Souters, Jim Fuller from the Hunter Development Board and public relations consultant Brian Cogan also contributed. The forum was told how the city's image is changing and how we might shape and promote the Newcastle of the future. The Bicentennial funding is seen as the chance of a century to get new things done. Newcastle already has some exciting capital works programs, such as the Harbour Foreshore development, the Regional Museum project on the old Castlemaine Brewery site, and the extensions to the Newcastle Conservatorium of Music. But people-orientated festivities are also being planned. And after almost disappearing altogether, Matara has emerged as a festival with a real community spirit, a spirit which organisers hope they can tap in 1988.
I think that the change is from a city which saw itself as an industrial city and with certain limitations culturally to one that sees itself now as a sort of a bubbling, energetic urban community. It is the sixth largest city in the country. It does have an exciting art scene. I think people are starting to now throw off some of that feeling of slight second-rateness and be proud of what Newcastle is.
Hello, I'm Janelle Provost. Health Minister Peter Anderson says there won't be any cuts to the Mater Hospital's paediatric unit. The Minister also says that the Mater can expect to receive more than $2 million for its oncology unit and a capital works program in this month's budget.
Join Anna Manzoni and John Church for all the news tonight at 6.
The clash between White Sox and Boomerangs was tight from beginning to end, with home runs hard to come by for both sides. White Sox were favourites, having won the minor premiership by beating last year's champions Belmont in last week's final. But the Boomerangs slugged it out, boosted by performances from Ian Liddell and Greg Arms, who are both first-grade cricket players as well. White Sox edged ahead at the end, the final scoreline reading 8-6.
Hundreds of Novocastrians took advantage of the spring weather and joined in the colourful penny farthing picnic in scenic King Edward Park. Today saw an end to the week-long Matara celebrations throughout the city and brought one last burst of entertainment, with picnickers enjoying scores of attractions, including jugglers and multicultural dancing. Dressed in period costume, the Newcastle Gilbert and Sullivan Company helped to take onlookers back to the time of penny farthings, with their performance of trial by jury. Organisers say this year's Matara has shown that Newcastle really knows how to celebrate. And according to Matara's administrator Johnny Allen, it's just a warm-up for the biggest party ever. These celebrations, though, are a lead-up to our big bicentennial party coming up.
Yes, I think it's all gathering. People are now sensing that 1988 will be a year to remember, and we're seeing all of it as trial runs for the big one in 1988.
And what's planned?
We've got a full year of activities, many of which we're not able to announce yet, but some of them are quite spectacular. For example, the 88 Festival of Music is a statewide music program which will culminate in 10 days of music in Newcastle, which will bring thousands of musicians into Newcastle. But all through the year there'll be like an extended Matara through 1988.
But today was a very special day for all fathers, many of whom decided to celebrate in their own way, either by keeping a watchful eye on the tribe, catching up on the obvious, or taking the time to just lie back in the swing of things. Watchful eye on the tribe, catching up on the obvious, or taking the time to just lie back in the swing of things.
For the second day in a row, Australia's best motocross riders were churning up the Bali Ranch track. The glamour event was the 500cc solos, with New South Wales 500 champion Vaughan Style a favourite, especially after his win in the 250 title yesterday. The man who lost the title yesterday, Craig Dax, was eager for revenge. After a tough race, he won convincingly from Victorian Jimmy Ellis. Vaughan Style could only manage third. In other events, Darren Williams and Mark Kendall from South Australia won the 1000cc sidecar championship to add to their 500 win yesterday. And the 125 solo event was won by Glenn Bell from New South Wales.
The media campaign was officially opened by Chairman of the Quit for Life's Advisory Committee, Justice Graham Mullane. Headed by the likes of Australian and Parramatta footballer Peter Sterling and swimmer Lisa Forrest, the campaign is targeted at the 11 to 18-year-old age group. Television and radio commercials will supplement kits to be distributed throughout the schools to help kids kick the nicotine habit. It's the first time advertising has gone statewide for Quit for Life, and this time it has the support of the National Drug Offensive. Terry Slevin has been the Quit for Life program coordinator in the area for the past 2 years. So why has it taken this long for a campaign to reach the estimated 5,000 high school smokers in the Hunter region?
Well, I guess the legitimate reasons for looking at youth after the adult population is that the youth of Australia, everywhere, model their behaviour on the adults they see around them. So if there's been a campaign to encourage, a successful campaign to encourage adults to stop smoking, then it's legitimate to move in and encourage the youth to quit smoking or to not take it up.
Last night's meeting at the Matara Hospital was organised by the Paediatric's Parents Support Group and was attended by the Regional Director of Health, Dr. Owen James, and Chief Executive Officer of the Matara, Ralph Watson. The meeting was sparked by the news 2 weeks ago that the Matara Hospital is facing a serious shortfall in funding, and one of the cost-cutting measures being looked at by its board was a 10 to 15% cut in paediatrics. In response to an outcry by doctors and patients, Health Minister Peter Anderson last Friday gave guarantees that the service would not be cut. Parents maintain, however, that the service needs an increase in funding because it has been underfunded for many years. The meeting passed a motion calling for the paediatrics unit to receive separate funding from the Department of Health. The meeting also called for parents to be represented on decisions about the funding of the service. Dr. James told the meeting that paediatric services would improve when the new Rankin Park Teaching Hospital is completed. In the meantime, he said, the Matara must do its best with limited money.
His urine output. Yes, but
Police say this station wagon travelling south along the Pacific Highway swerved into the path of an oncoming vehicle at about 8:45 this morning. Killed instantly was the male driver of the silver grey car. Police believe the East Maitland man was holidaying. His suitcase and camping equipment lay strewn across the road. The female driver of the other vehicle was flown by a rescue helicopter to the Newcastle's Royal Hospital, suffering from severe head injuries. No other passengers were involved, and at this stage no names have been released.
It's one of our government's platforms, but what councils have always had the opportunity in the past and will have in the future is to approach me as Minister to look at their funding programs, to see if they need extra support.
But now she doesn't intend to be so lenient. During the 2 years Newcastle has been governed by an administrator, the rates have been well below the government ceiling, averaging at an increase of just below 6%. Labor Lord Mayoral candidate John McNaughton says his party intends to continue this trend.
Well, I certainly think it's achievable, and I don't think it's too low because it's our policy to keep it at 6%. That's our discussed policy with our team, and we've been right through it. Ron Robinson is our specialist on finance, and he agrees that that's quite achievable.
Former Alderman and Independence Group leader John Tate says it's essential that the new council follows the administrator's example
to have a carry-through of
the rate
information
increases at the same level as last
finalise
year.
a budget. There may be some experienced aldermen there for sure, but I still say that it would be wrong for the new council to do anything other than maintain the increase that the administrator, Mr Saunders, has been working with, and that's in the order of 5%.
It was lonely in the council chambers today when the administrator handed down an important document that will no doubt become a Bible to the new, inexperienced aldermen. The procedural manual for aldermen and staff was compiled by the town clerk, Barry Lewis. The manual includes copies of the Local Government Act, the City of Newcastle Act, and outlines meeting procedure and the lines of communication that the new aldermen should follow to glean information on council matters. The manual points out that aldermen should devote time and thought to council policy matters, saying that if these matters are not given adequate time, the people of Newcastle will not have obtained from their aldermen the best that they can give. The administrator, Colin Saunders, agrees and says that the new council should leave the running of everyday matters to the town clerk and his staff.
That's the idea that we anticipate the council will follow that direction and retain the situation as far as policy and the direction of the council in the future, or direction of Newcastle, and the strategic planning in that aspect. So basically for the benefit of the city, they'll be on the main factors without getting involved in other mundane things that are not actually necessary.
The manual also talks about the relationship between the Lord Mayor and the town clerk, saying that it's imperative that they work closely and harmoniously together. Towards this end, the town clerk has authorised the transfer of the Lord Mayor's office from the City Hall to the administration building. The City Hall office will now only be used for civic functions, while the new Lord Mayor will spend most of the time in an office on the first floor next to Mr Lewis. There is a certain amount of sensitivity and confidentiality attached to the Lord Mayor's job, and it may be found that when the new Lord Mayor is elected, he or she may not want their office where Mr Lewis says it should be.
The closure of the Newcastle Immigration Office sometime before Christmas was announced in the budget as part of department efforts to prune spending. But Mr Morris says the office covers its own costs by raising $230,000 in fees each year. Federal member also says it handles 30,000 counter-inquiries every year, constituting a vital link between the area's ethnic population and the Canberra bureaucracy. And there's an important law enforcement aspect also.
And there are some concerns on things like illegal immigrants, where the office plays a very important function, and with that office being closed, we'll see, I believe, an increase in illegal immigration in the Newcastle area.
Well, that being the case, one wonders why Mr Herford would want the office shut.
Well, I think it's more a question of Mr Herford accepting his departmental advice. And the departments in Australia in general centralise. They tend to ignore regional centres. We know that from our own history in various areas of government. And the Minister has perhaps been too busy, too preoccupied with budgetary matters to worry about some of the minor details of the department. So I think he's accepted advice which is poorly developed, insensitive and potentially dishonest.
Mr Morris has called on the community to back his efforts for the retention of the office and its 11 staff at Lombard House in Huntersville.
By providing examples of services they've had that they feel they couldn't get in if the office was closed, by their comments on the office's performance, by whether the office has been competent and sensitive, to indicate that they as a community support the office's existence and what it's done in recent years.
Just how far are you prepared to go in your campaign?
Well, Ray, if the office wasn't here, I'd be campaigning for one to be here. So this campaign will go on until the office is there permanently.
The Lake Macquarie women's team quashed the State Cup chances of both the Hills Ride and Central Coast teams by beating them each 2-0 at the Broadmeadow Basketball Stadium today. However, both matches were hard fought, often playing point for point. Number 5 Donna Marjorie Banks, just back from the Australian Championships in Brisbane, put in a strong performance, as did number 3 Michelle Milstead. The girls were leaving directly after today's contest to drive to Adelaide, where the Australian Country Championships are being held. Lake Macquarie are the current title holders of this event.
The championships were organised by the Gresford District Bushmen's Carnival Association, proceeds going to McLeod House Country Children's Nursing Home and the Spastic Centre of New South Wales. With $10,000 in prize money up for grabs, the competition attracted 270 entries for the rough riding events and 490 camp drafting entries from all points of the state and Queensland. Bull riding and buck jumping events had the crowd of 2,000 people enthralled. But the big interest was in the open camp draft, where $2,000 in prize money was on the line. The event, which involves cutting a steer out of a yard and moving it around a figure-8 course, was won by Hunter Valley stockman Bobby Palmer from Gundy. Second was John Smith from Sydney, and third was the winner's nephew, Trevor Palmer from Singleton.
Hello, I'm Jane Button. National Aboriginal Week got underway in the Hunter today with several flag-raising ceremonies and a march through the city.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.